11 honors. We just started 11 honors, the Heart of Darkness.
The sea reach of thin stretched before us like the beginning of an interminable waterway. In the offing, the sea and the sky were welded together without a joint, and in the luminous space, the tan sails of the barges drifting up with the tide seemed to stand still in red clusters of canvas sharply beat. Gleams of varnished spirits, a haze rested on the low shores that ran out to sea in vanishing flatness. The air was dark above Grayson, and farther back still seemed condensed into a mournful gloom, brooding motionlessly over the thickest and greatest mountain.
Let's read the whole first page before we start answering the questions. Yeah. Sure.
Oh, you want me to?
You can read.
The director of companies was our captain and our host. We four affectionately watched his back as he stood in the post, looking to seaward. On the whole river there was nothing or nothing that looked half so nautical. He resembled a pilot, which to a seaman is trustworthiness personified. It was difficult to realize his work was not out there as luminous estuary, but behind, within the golden blue.
Yeah, her.
Between us there was, as I have already said somewhere, the bond of the sea. Besides holding our hearts together through long periods of separation, it had the effect of making us tolerant for each other's yarns and even convictions. The lawyer, the best of old fellows, had, because of his many years and many virtues, the only person on deck and was lying on the only rug. The accountant had brought out already the box of dominoes and was touring the architecturally with the bones. Marlowe sat cross-legged right aft, leaning against the mizzen mast. He had sunken cheeks, a yellow complexion, a straight back, aspect, and with his arms dropped, the palms of his hands outwards.
Okay, that was ascetic. It meant stern.
Oh,
Yeah, you go ahead.
the director, satisfied the anchor had good hold, made his way aft, and sat down among us. We exchanged a few words lazily. Afterwards, there was silence on board the yacht. For some reason or other, we did not begin the game of dominoes. We felt meditative and fit for nothing but flaccid staring. The day was ending and the serenity was still and exquisite relic. The water shone specifically, the sky without a speck was abandoned in the sea of a stained light. The very mist of the Essex marshes was like a gauzy and radiant ballad, hung from the wooded rises inland and draping low shores of
Diaphanous.
only the gloom to the west, spreading over the upper reaches, became more somber every minute, as if angered by the approaching sun.
All right, let's review. Number one, where does the story begin? I've already told you.
Anchored on the Thames.
Yes. Sometimes called the Thames by the English, which is the river that runs through London out to the, I guess it's the North Sea, the Channel. Who are the individuals on the yacht? There are four of them on there. We're talking about page 45. All right, so there's the captain, who is the director of the company. So there's a company that all these guys seem to be connected to. There's a lawyer. There's an accountant. That's three. there's a guy named Marlowe. He's the main character, you could say, of the book. And who's the fifth character? I mean, who's the fifth person on the boat? Yes. We can call him Conrad if you wish. We don't know who it is. It's not necessarily Conrad. I mean, this is made up. I mean, it's fiction. Conrad's a real person. But if you want to call him Conrad, just call him the narrator. That's the best way to describe it. So those are the five guys own the ship. And what time of day is it?
Morning.
I said evening.
Well, the name of the book is Heart of Darkness, and so it's getting darker, not brighter.
I
And
was,
so
I was
the-
also spacing off of that, they said the glow was in the west. I caught that.
Right.
That's like the
So that would be sunset, like you said. And so it's getting darker, and the story takes place, like I said, the entire story is being told by one guy, Marlowe, on board this ship. And at the end of the book, it's dark still, but they're still in the Thames. That's why it's called a frame story. You got everything happens in between these two scenes. How is the Thames described in 46, 47? Look at 46 and 47. Did you notice any words to describe it?
Meditative.
Okay, I'll accept that. We felt meditated. The day was ending, you know, it's kind of evening.
Placid.
Right, the Thames runs into the sea. And if a river is connected to the sea, I guess ultimately all rivers do, but if it doesn't run into another river, this runs right into the sea. You know, when the tide changes, what? How many times does the tide change?
I think twice a day, I think it's every 12 hours.
So,
But it completes one full cycle.
yeah, right, you have 2 low tides and 2 high tides, isn't that right? On a day? In a 24-hour period? Right, anyway, every time the tide changes, the river changes. So the current usually runs to the river. You follow me? But when the tide changes, the current will sometimes run in the opposite direction. They cannot sail up a river, you know, against the tide. You can't sail. If you had a steamship, you could, but they don't. These guys are on what kind of sailing vessel. So they have to wait for the tide to change again. So that's, the Thames is it's dark, it's placid, and they're waiting for the flood tide, or they're waiting for the tide to change. All right, let's keep reading. Would that be Sarah?
Is it
And at last, page 46.
Oh.
And most people, it was great last week, I came to you with some, I was gonna check your questions for Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and I was very pleased to see that you had been keeping up. One way or the other, you had the answers. And we had gone over them, but I had not checked them, so if you pay attention, like I said earlier, you'll have these ready when, there's 3 actually sections of the book, and we will check them by section.
And at last, in its curve and imperceptible fall, the sun sank low, and from glowed white changed to a dull red without rays, and without heat, as if about to go out suddenly. Stricken to death by the touch of that gloom brooding over a crowd of men. Forthwith a change came over the water, and the serenity became less brilliant, but more profound. The old river and its broad reach rested unruffled at the decline of the day. After ages of good service done to the race that peopled its banks, spread out in the tranquil dignity of a waterway leading to the utmost end of the earth. We looked at the venerable stream, not in the vivid flush of a short day that comes and departs forever, but in the august light of abiding memory, and indeed nothing is easier for a man who has, at the phrase, goes following the sea, with reverence of affection than to evoke the very spirit of the past upon the lower reaches of the Thames. The tidal current runs to and fro in its unceasing service, crowded with the memories of men and ships. It has borne to the rest of home pass out of the gigantic tail to the Erebus and Terror, bound on the conquest that has never returned. It has manned the ship and the men. They have sailed from Deptford, from Greenwich, from Erith, and adventured the settlers. King's ships and the ships of men are unchanged. Captains, admirals, and dark interlopers of the eastern trade, and the commissioned generals of East India fleets. Hunters for gold or pursuers of fame, they have all gone out on that stream, bearing the sword and often the torch, messengers of the might within the land, bearers of a spark from the sacred fire. What greatness has not floated on the ebb of that river into the mystery of an unknown earth? The dreams of man, the seed of commons wealth, the germs of empire.
Thank you for reading all that. Look at question 3 again. We said the sea at that moment was calm and peaceful. They were waiting for the tide to change. But then it talks about how the river, how is the river described? It's described almost like a road or a highway to various things. Because if you were in a ship sailing from somewhere in London, you would have to go down the Thames. It's the only way you can get to the sea. And it mentioned Sir Francis Drake and Sir John Franklin. Do you know who either of those people are? You know who Sir Francis Drake is?
Isn't he the guy that hijacked the boat?
Yeah.
Can,
Cape of Good Hope, I think. Was that him or somebody else?
several people wanted to say. What do you got?
Isn't he the poet that fought the Greek people and died?
No, he's
Oh, that's,
Sir Francis Drake was an explorer.
Yeah. Didn't he have something to do? Did he have anything to do with the Spanish Armada? Or have I got the wrong guy?
Was he the guy that sunk it?
That's what I'm thinking.
With the
It's like a-
the fire stuff?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the other guy is Sir John Franklin, and the two ships mentioned are the Erebus and the Terror. I know a little bit about those two ships. Read a book about it one time. They were trying to find a northwest passage north of Canada to the Pacific Ocean. In other words, through the Arctic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And they got encased in ice, and they had to leave or desert the ships, and they were never found again. The men aboard those two ships were never found. So there was a failed effort to find a northwest passage, plus they died in the process. Yeah.
He's the dude that sailed around the world.
Trey did?
Yeah.
Okay. You said something about the Cape of Good Hope. Is that Africa or France? That's South America.
That's Cape of Good Hope. It's South.
The other is, Africa is the Cape,
Cape Horn?
yeah.
Or is Cape Horn somewhere else?
No, I think it is Africa.
Let me look it up.
Anyway, so the ship has been the avenue, the highway, the road for great vessels leaving England to explore, somebody said, to explore the earth as well as to fight great battles. All right, so we'll go to Ben. Are you okay with this? The sun set.
The sun set, the dust fell on the stream, and lights began to appear along the shore. The Chapman Lighthouse, a three-legged thing erect on a mud flat, shed strongly. Lights of ships moved in the fairway, a great stir of lights going up and going down, and farther west on the upper reaches the place of the monsters. Town was still marked ominously on the sky, a brooding gloom in sunshine and lower glare under the stars. And this also, said Marla, suddenly had been one of the dark places on the earth.
Would you mark that? It's the next question. It is the first thing Marlowe says in the book. Marlowe is the narrator of most of the book, and this is the first time he opens his mouth. He and the other guys are just sitting there on the deck of the what's it called, the Nellie, and they're waiting for the tide to change, and it's getting dark, and they probably can't see each other. they're in the dark, and he makes this comment. What is ominous about that comment? I think it sounds somewhat ominous. He said, this has also been one of the dark places on the earth, of the earth. What does he mean by that? When he says dark places, you know, every spot on the earth is as dark as any other spot, right? Is there any part of the earth that, man, you want darkness? You come here. Is there any place dark? I mean, maybe
Space.
longer.
Mariana Trench.
Well, I'm talking about, you mean, on the surface, not
Come on, Walker.
But if you're on the surface of the earth, is there any place that's darker than any other place? Yeah.
Ocean.
I can't hear you.
A jungle. Like
Well, that's a good point. If you're in a jungle, it probably is darker than it is outside. That's a really good point, actually. That would work for forests too, I guess. But what does he mean? He doesn't mean it that way. He doesn't mean that this is like gonna be literally darker. When he says this has also been one of the dark places, what do you think he means by that? Remember what we said about what dark?
Like set, not like necessarily the light, but like the feeling, deep darkness.
Oh, depression?
That could be. What else? What is the other obvious thing we said about darkness?
That something is hidden there, it's like.
Oh,
you're not
Good.
discovering
It's hidden, it's depressing, but it's also the E
Bad.
word.
Evil.
So, you know, this is England. These are the good guys, right?
Yeah.
These are many of our ancestors, our country basically, among other people, but in a large part colonized by Englishmen. We speak English. And yet he says this has been a dark place. If you know anything about English history, that's absolutely true. James?
He was the only man of us who still followed the sea. The worst that could be said of him was that he did not represent his class. He was a seaman, but he was a wanderer, too. While most seamen led, if one may so express it, a sedentary life. Their minds are of the stay-at-home order, and their home is always with them, the ship. And so is their country, the sea. One ship is very much like another, and the sea is always the same. And the immutability
Right.
of their surroundings, the foreign shores, the foreign faces, the changing immensity of life, glide past, filled not by a sense of mystery, but a slight full of disdainful ignorance. For there is nothing mysterious to a seaman unless it be the sea itself, which is the mistress of his existence and inscrutable as destiny. For the rest, after his hours of work, a casual stroll or a casual spree on shore suffices to unfold for him the secret of a whole continent. And generally he finds the secret not worth knowing. The yarns of seamen have a direct simplicity, the whole meaning of which lies within the shell of a cracked nut. But Marlowe was not typical, if his propensity to spin yarns be accepted. And to him the meaning of an episode was not inside of the kernel, but outside, enveloping the tale which brought it out only as glow brings out a haze, in the likeness of one of these misty halos that sometimes are made visible by the spectral illumination of moonshine.
Look at the question, it's number 5. By the way, what's ironic about sailors? They said that sailors are really stay-at-home kind of people. You know, somebody that you don't want to go out at night, you'd rather just homebody or something. How could you say that about sailors in an ironic way?
The ocean is their home.
And their ship is their home, and they never leave their home. Their ocean is they're always at home in an ironic way. What does it mean when he says that for Marlowe, the meaning is not on the inside, but outside, enveloping the tale? I'm not completely 100% confident I know the answer to that, so you could help me.
I was gonna say that you have to comprehend the entirety of the story rather than finding one discrete line that is the meaning.
What's the expression, you can't see the forest for the trees?
Yeah.
That means you can't see the big picture because when you're in the weeds, that's another cliche, but that's what you're right. He tells a story so that it's the outside is more important than the inside. Let's read one more and then I'll give you these. I got them right over here. Right.
His remark did not seem at all surprising. It was just like Marlowe. It was like accepted in silence. No one took the trouble of interrogating him. And presently he said very slowly.
Okay, so we will start here. I've got to give you something, I mean, it's just some tests, and, we got 5 minutes, so don't get up yet. But we'll pick up, we've done the first 6 questions. I got 2 things to give you. This is, I thought I had let you see this. This is red badge test. I thought I had, I think most of you seen it, but. Would you give these back to me? I will let you keep them for to get closer to the examiner. If you've seen it, if you've seen it, you don't need to have it. I think that was on this great.
I got 79. Yeah, screw you.
Alistair is taking it.
Here's your pass.
Thank you.
I'd rather get in a very full mile with the voice than $100.
Yeah, would you give these back to me after you get down?
Yes, I would.
Well, did you guys see the odds everyone wants this?
I would not back it, I don't know.
Like, oh, I didn't do bad. Everybody else did.
You have the answer.
Anybody get one?
Oh, no, thank you, man.
For the boys.
For the boys. Yes. Every single
How many objections you only get off the last day? How many points did you get? His name was actually.
I just have, 3, 4, 5.
I started with the goals, now it's going to the test.
Thank you. You need to do better next time. but it'll be better. You need to do better.
That sound is.
Everybody give me your test.
Wait, we're trying to get
On what?
Do I have your-
Oh, okay, all right. I got 70.
You got a what?
I know.
That's awful. I think I just, Tucker,
I don't care either.
Because you were told you